what did you learn about the first week? What were some of the key takeaways? What were some rooms for improvement? Because I'm always going to ask people, how can we continue to improve on this course? Because that's what I'm all about. I'm all about continuous improvement. I am not married to this thing. If you say that first week was trash, then let me know.
I thought it was good. I mean, obviously it was just the first week, so not like too much going on, but I did actually kind of like the idea of writing the reflection paper kind of based on what you think about the business now rather than researching it. Because just based off how I wrote it and everything, I kind of thought just some different things, but it's going to be interesting to see how my thought process might change going through this course. So I did kind of like that aspect of it.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I thought the case study was interesting because it's like made it so apparent that things aren't black and white. You can really look at things a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and some of you, I think Chaywan's class, because they had the discussion, and it's like the cultural differences are a big thing, and that's a big problem. And given that we operate in the international world, it's like, okay, if I'm in China, this is not going to be, this wouldn't fly in the US. But since we're in China, and since some things are expected, how do we deal with it? So that's the discussions that we have in the industry. So for example, the bribes are expected in China, bribes are expected in Mexico. How do we deal with that whenever it's a part of our corporate policy that we don't give gifts over a certain amount of money? But we're trying to get $1 million. We're trying to get $1 million project in Mexico. We're trying to get $1 million project in China. How do we deal with it? How do we handle that?
I'll be interested to see based off, because I took an ethics class in college and it was more general business and not focused on supply chain. Like based off what I wrote and then also what I've experienced working in like the international business field, how it kind of shapes opinions down the road, but also misconceptions about doing business, like a US business trying to expand into other regions, or like rather than if you were in the region as like a local, what the different rules are and what's illegal and whatnot.
And I'm going to be skipping around a lot because it can't be avoided. But you have to have, because we have like a whole week on cultural intelligence, and that's a big thing, in terms of cultural intelligence and understanding the different cultures and understanding the different, values and things like that within a country. And I think that's where diversity and inclusion comes into play, where there's certain things, there's certain unwritten rules where you're not going to read in a textbook. You're not going to read within a master. You're not going to understand it within the master's program. And that's why you need to develop that diverse workforce, where you can partner, you can partner with organizations within that industry within that country, I should say, so that you understand, those cultures, within that geographical region. So that's one thing that we talk about. And like you said, there's no black and white, and I think that we're going to see a lot of changes in the next couple of years. We're going to undo what was done in the last 4 years. Again, regardless of what you're affiliated with, regardless of what side you're on, there's going to be changes. And that's one thing we've been talking about a lot within the industry within the last 2 weeks. So what's your so CSR? What's your thoughts on the changes that may arise with the new administration? And again, it doesn't matter what your affiliation is. You are being hesitant.
I know there'll be changes with in terms of like climate change and sustainability for rules that businesses can only emit so much. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to claim to be in global climate change.
No, keep going though, because that's why I like to have these conversations, because I learn a lot too, because y'all are deep in the industry in different sectors, that I don't work in. So what do you mean by that? Have you seen your organization kind of gearing up and rounding the troops for what's going to be coming?
I know we have a sustainability pledge that we're supposed to be working towards, like by 2025, we're going to have X amount of like giving back, but I haven't looked in detail to see how that works with climate change. But I think that even businesses that might not agree with administration and changes, once they see that there's maybe financial benefits, maybe they get grants if they make things that are more sustainable for the environment, then they're going to probably be more on board regardless of who's in power.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what the Biden administration made during his, whenever he was running, it was a multi-trillion-dollar deal, over the next 5 years on clean energy initiatives. And because of that, I had a phone call a day at 2:00 with a Fortune 500 company that you all know. And they are looking to be, I have notes here. So they're looking to be carbon negative by 2050. I think it's already published. So they're looking to be carbon negative by 2050. They're looking for different alternative energy sources. There are a number of sources that were discussed. But the current state is that these energy providers don't have a solution. There are some electric energy solutions for manufacturers, but it comes at a high cost, right? Now we also are looking into bio-based energy. There was also a discussion of nuclear energy. Now I'm not a fan of that, but I have not done the research on it, so I could say that I don't know because I haven't done the research. But there are discussions that you may see an increase in nuclear energy in the future, because to Sarah's point, like I said, these companies are gearing up for these tax cuts. They're gearing up for these grants that the administration said that they were going to come out with in the next 5 years. Now, whether you are doing it to get the tax cuts or whether you are doing it because you are indeed sustainable, like I said last week, I don't care. As long as you're being sustainable, I don't care, right? Now, that's just one piece of corporate social responsibility. That's one aspect of it. That's the planet aspect of it. You still have to look at the economic or philanthropic, right? Or the social impact, social aspects as well. So just because you're including renewables within your business model does not mean you're going to be you're socially responsible or socially responsible organization. That does not mean that. You're just attacking one pillar of the situation, right? So what's your thoughts on that? Does anyone else have examples of or have heard whispers within your organization on how you're looking to become sustainable?
I think sustainability. I was gonna say on the social aspect, I think there's
Go ahead. Well, anything CSR, anything social response, CSR related.
Cool. I think there's gonna be a huge push for more racial justice and a technological push for data privacy as well, which I think I'm seeing a lot because I work at a massive tech company, and we're seeing like a big push for data privacy and just even like more secure networks in general.
You're at ADP, right?
Yeah, ADP. Yeah.
Can you expand on the whole data privacy? Have you all heard of GDPR? The UK, the EU initiative?
Yeah.
Do you all talk about that within your organization?
Like essentially making people like they can either allow or not allow.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, we have been talking about that. I mean, I think the Biden administration is probably going to push for something along those lines. So it's something we've been made aware of. We haven't made necessarily moves to do that yet, but I think there will be in the near future.
So that kind of brings us into our discussion this week on ethical risks, right?
Mhm.
So the global data protection regulation was set forth by the European Union, I think, in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Could have been 2018. I'm pretty sure it's 2019. Don't quote me on that. But it was about, opting in, but and I've done a lot of research on that, and because the book I'm writing again is for AI for Good, and there's a big problem. That's a totally different discussion. That would be a 2-week discussion. But whenever an individual that was within the Obama administration was interviewed, and she was asked whether or not GDPR would be applicable to the US, she responded with, GDPR is a great thing, but the US has to evaluate their own regulation. Pretty much in a nutshell. She pretty much said GDPR is not good enough for the US. But yes, to an extent I agree with that, but at least they have something. Right? In my opinion, in the US, with these emerging technologies coming out right now, it's the absolute Wild West in the US. With all of these apps coming out, it's an absolute Wild West in the US. And as I mentioned, the new Clubhouse application, that is, if you're not on it, get on it. It's wide open, and people are talking about everything. They're talking about the companies they're starting up. They're talking about the patents they're starting up, and I see some issues coming out of that, because you'll have one person that's talking about their organization, and then you have 150 people in the audience. And if somebody robs it, I'm pretty sure the Clubhouse organizers are recording it, but other people aren't recording it. It's against the regulations of this application. So it's my view that, these ethical risks, you're going to see something come out of this, because this app, I think it's like from October or something like that. I got it in like the last week of December, and now this thing is going crazy. So something came out. So there was an article that came out Monday. Like I said, it started in October. It's valuated $1 billion already. So has anybody heard of it?
I haven't heard of it, but it looks like you have to be invited. Is that
Yes.
why? Okay.
Yeah, I was invited by someone, and then I was in it since the last week of December. I will admit that the first week of January, I was on it for 20 hours straight. It's that good. It is addictive, but you only get, like, once you get in it, because I actually moderated a bunch of rooms, and I think that's why I got a lot of invitations. And I think I've only got like 4 in the last month to like invite people. But I think they brought in 3 million people over the last 2 weeks. It's only available for Apple users, and the floodgates hadn't opened yet. And once Samsung users get in here, I think that this application is going to be out of control. So that's one thing that I've been speaking with a lot of people on. I've connected with my business partner with a startup that I was talking about the other week on Clubhouse, MIT computer science guy. I just had a call last night. I just had a call yesterday with the director at Facebook. So director at Facebook was in the room. I was talking about artificial intelligence. I reached out to him, and we had a call yesterday about the things I'm doing with my artificial intelligence organization. So it's like you get access to people from pretty much anywhere. And there's one individual. She works for Google. Her job at Google is to pretty much ensure that the AI algorithms aren't discriminatory or racist. That's what she does, right? And she talks about the work that Google's doing, and things she agrees with, things she doesn't agree with, So, and again, that comes down to our discussion of ethical risks. So yes, she is talking. She's for the people. She's talking about what she's doing within the organization. But is that a risk on her end? What do you think? She's not really talking about trade secrets, but she's talking about the things that pretty much is a competitive advantage for Google.
I mean, I don't think Google would be happy to know that.
Right.
So probably not.
What does anyone else think? Any other thoughts? All right. So any other takeaways, any other thoughts and takeaways from last week's discussion, from last week's content, I should say? First off, let's start with where did you learn from last week? Let's start with that.
Can I say something? Actually, during this week that I learned some stuff, that was hard for me to distinguish between what is ethical and what is not. So the barrier which is in between, some hard is hard to see. And so maybe we need to see case by case that what we need to do. Or so just, it depends on the personal judgment maybe. So, you know, I mean, apart from following the rules and instructions and code of conduct, we need to judge by ourselves, in fact. So, and it makes it hard for us because depends on different people's perspectives. So people might, you know, make different decisions. So who decides what is good, what is not good, and what's the barrier exactly? So sometimes it's easy to say what is good or what is ethical, but sometimes it's so hard. So especially when it came to our homework, some parts really made me think for, I don't know, some hours to think what I would do in that case, because sometimes, you know, based on which, you know, point of view, people might, you know, make different decisions.
Mm-hmm. Give me,
I
give
think
me an
like the
example.
other
Give me an
thing
example of your
while-
thought process.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I was just
Go
saying while I was writing my reflection too, the other thing that I realized is like ethics touches everything. I think like
Yes.
historically you think of ethics and you think of just following the law, and that's not the case at all, especially in the current world we live in.
Mm-hmm. Nazila,
Yeah.
what specific example would you have?
For example, having meals with two parts, you know, for example, the supplier and I don't know, the customer or something like that. So having meals. So somewhere I read that this can be good for building relationships and, you know, keeping good relationships. But again, it depends on, you know, maybe the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
So for celebrating a contract or just for having a relationship. So for example, that was an example, having meals or going to different events or entertainments.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you all a question. How many of you read that case and said, dang, I did that? Anybody?
I definitely, when I started thinking about the dinner scenario, and I talked to my boss about it as well, because I was thinking about times that we've traveled and either dined on like a customer or client's money, or we were the ones that picked up the tab, and how there's technically like a 70, depending on what city you're in, there's like a $75 per diem amount you get. And a lot of people, not saying I've ever done this, will save that for dinner. And then you're supposed to also make sure you order like food with drinks and things like that. And when you submit expense reports, just thinking about the different ethical situations of like what's technically not illegal, but you're kind of, you know,
Right.
gliding on the line between what's right and wrong.
Right. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, especially in business. And that's what. So, Nazila, do you have another example?
Not example, but actually, honestly, the country that I come from has different things, as not say as ethics, but there are different things which are common sometimes. For example, in the second case, we have something like somehow related to what's it called? Facilitation payments.
Mm-hmm.
Have it a lot in Europe. So, and it looks so normal. So it's so hard for me when it comes to, judge, in a fair way. It's hard for me to see, okay, should I really do it because of the organization's sake, or no, I should, avoid it. So, because as I said, based on the country, the industry, or the place that we lived in, it's hard for us to judge. Judge between what is ethical and what is not.
And the thing, and that second example is happening right now with the smaller trucking companies and with the pandemic and with people trying to get product. That's happening, but you don't see it.
In
right?
here,
Excuse me?
in here, in the US.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yes. FedEx, UPS, no, probably not. But because it would be all over social media. But these small independent, 3PLs, independent contractors, owner operators, yeah. But
And one question, because in according to FCPA, yes, if I say it right, so this kind of payments are okay, right? So when it comes to government officials or something like that, so they're okay to pay extra for example, getting visa or something like that. I heard something in FCPA.
I don't know. I have to look at that one before I give you an answer, because I don't want to give you the wrong information. I'm going to send me that link. And is it chat in here?
You sent it for us, the FCPA, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that.
So yeah, just that made me actually a little bit confused to say, okay, so in which cases these facilitation payments are okay to be done, in which cases no. So
yeah, so I mean, and you make a good example where it's there's a lot of case by case basis, but on paper there's certain situations. You've seen a lot of case by case basis with the pandemic, right? And you're seeing it a lot within the ocean freight industry right now. I forgot the exact number, but I was in the discussion on a Clubhouse 2 days ago, Sunday night, yeah, and I was in a supply chain room, and they were saying off the port of off the coast of Miami, there's like hundreds of ships just sitting there. Go ahead, Sarah. You probably know better than I do.
Actually heard this one from my fiance, so I can't really speak to it, but he said that was it off of Miami that there's just like hundreds of cargo ships or
That's been there since the pandemic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's another. So Miami's just one of them. Singapore is an absolute mess because they're just sitting out there, and these people haven't been home since like February. They're just sitting out there on these ships because and it was even worse. During March and April, because countries wouldn't let these ships dock, wouldn't let these ships port. And the thing is, okay, is that ethical, or are we trying to control these cases? Okay, if we're trying to control these cases, what if half of the ships has contracted COVID and they can't get medical attention? Where's the ethical decision making in that? Right? So now you're going outside of organizations, and now you're getting in a discussion of the countries. So, and going back, if we go to this week's discussion, I guess I could just show this week's discussion. I couldn't. If we go to this week's discussion on ethical risks, and we talk about reputational risks, the U.S. does not have the greatest reputational risk right now. Okay. I've spoken at a number of different conferences in Singapore and China, in Australia and India. It's bad. U.S. reputation is bad. right? And I've been asked by a number of students of, how do we fix this? With the new administration, what's going to be one of the first things that President Biden does to fix the relationship with China? So that's one thing that, so what do you all think? What do you all think is the reputational risks of the US? And because of the reputational risk of the United States, how do you think other organizations around the world view organizations based in the US?
I feel like it's probably dependent on the sector.
Give me an example.
Like if you're an emerging tech company in the US, you're probably looked upon pretty well versus maybe a manufacturer.
Fair enough. I would actually agree with that. I would very much agree with that.
Yeah, I feel like maybe like if you're a manufacturer in the US, it's probably one, people are looking like you're most likely not making a smart move because it's probably way more expensive, and you're looking at probably more laws, etc.
All right, that leads me to an example. So I spoke with a, I'm not going to say his name because if you deal with blockchain, you might know him. So I deal with a very wealthy, very well-known individual in the blockchain industry. And of all the companies in the US that were established, we're not talking about crypto. We're talking about, blockchain applications within the supply chain, for example, or within healthcare, for example. Those founders, they frolic in Puerto Rico, right? So if you have one of those emerging tech companies, that deal with blockchain, and given the reputation of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, right? Blockchain, if for those you don't know, blockchain is technology that this like Bitcoin and Ethereum and Polkadot and Chainlink are built on, right? Yes, they're the tool, but there's so many cases where these blockchain solutions have absolutely nothing to do with cryptocurrency, right? But given the reputation of cryptocurrencies, what are there? Do you foresee, based on what you know, any ethical risks or reputational risks of dealing with a company that was founded on blockchain that has nothing to do with cryptocurrencies? I'm going somewhere with this, so stay with me. Any thoughts?
I believe that it's going to be, for a while, it's going to be hard for companies to convince investors. I think it's more common, like I would say, in the United States than it is in the other parts of the world. So it's going to be hard to convince people to work with a company that is, or it's going to take longer. Like if it was a normal company, like you could just present, how everything works. But if it's blockchain, you have to educate future investors and stakeholders in order for them to work with you, I think.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Any other thoughts?
I think it's a relatively untested market, and there hasn't been much rules and regulations around it, so there might be some hesitation there.
Good point. Very good point. Any other thought? Kaz, have you all been, well, you probably can't say anything, but do you know companies who deal with blockchain?
I have a couple of clients who deal with blockchain.
Okay. Because there is a number, like I said, I think I said this last week, there's a number of companies that we use every single day that have blockchain applications internally. They're just not saying anything about it. There's a company that you use every single day that uses blockchain. They're just not saying anything about it. All right.
Yes, I think there's that, like the ethical like aspect of it. It's also gonna be, you know, since it's new, you have to understand as we learned last, like in the exercise we did, there's different ethical scenarios that occur. So there's also that question of ethics in blockchain that haven't been answered yet. I believe.
Yeah, there's more. I'm trying to stay away from AI because that's a whole different can of worms. I mean, I think that the ethical issues in blockchain is a whole lot easier because blockchain actually assists with the ethical concerns because the whole benefit to blockchain is because it is that it increases the transparency. So it actually enhances the ethical practices, if that makes sense. So I did one discussion, I did one presentation, a closing keynote at the SAPIX conference. I think I already mentioned that, where I talked about, the benefits of blockchain within the supply chain industry. I also did a conference in China where I'm saying that we need to audit sustainability. And I said one of the ways to audit sustainability is through blockchain because of the transparency. And that's why you haven't, that's one of the reasons why you haven't seen adoption of blockchain in the supply chain industry, because there's so many unethical practices going on, right? This whole greenwashing, whenever you hear the term greenwashing, it came from the supply chain industry, right? And them marketing and saying, oh, we manufacture sustainably and all this other things and the ethical practices of individuals. No. So it's like I said, these technologies, again, these are my thoughts, and no one's really checked me on it after I've spoken at these conferences, and those people are very candid. These technologies are the key. These technologies are the key to sustainable environments. Like I said, blockchain will lead to ethical practices because it's transparent. And my argument at these conferences is that whenever companies start adopting it, and when companies start making these blockchains permissionless, which means anyone can look at these blockchain transactions at any given time, then these companies that aren't doing it, they're saying, okay, why don't you have a blockchain? What are you trying to hide? So that's my argument. That's my argument in that, the blockchain can be a technology that can actually increase the ethics and increase and decrease the risk of reputational risk, I should say. Any thoughts on that? And does anyone disagree? I want somebody to disagree, because I do not know everything. I do not know every industry. That's how I learn. Any thoughts? So go ahead.
Don't you think that with blockchain it's gonna take away huge human element in like businesses?
What do you mean?
It's gonna replace human beings. Like it's gonna take over some jobs that humans were usually doing, and then it's more ethical and everything, but then I think it's gonna replace some jobs from human beings, I think.
All right, so I did a conference on that. I actually did a couple of them. So let me see here. Give me a second. So if you go to YouTube, and I'm going to talk you through what I talked about, but let me see here. So if you go to YouTube, type my name in. I think the title is Rise the Machines, I believe. I think I published that one. It's in here somewhere. So there's one. So to answer your question, there's one of them that briefly talks about it. So LogiSim. So when I talk about the artificial intelligence and machine learning maturity, one of the things I talked about is that I refer to AI as augmented intelligence, in that augmented intelligence will only assist individuals. Okay, it's going to assist individuals in their daily tasks and their daily duties. And we are going to be we are far away from the general. So general artificial intelligence is like C-3PO in Star Wars. It's like Terminator. It's like iRobot. That's general AI. Now, I said in one of these presentations that we're 30 years away from it, but I think the government, so the way these technologies work is that the government has had these technologies for years, for like 5 to 10 years. And then they tested it. So the government tested out. So the FBI tested out, CIA tested out, and the military tested out. And then once they prove it out and they say, okay, yeah, this can be commercialized. Oh, this one? Mm-mm. we're keeping that one with us. That stays under wraps. So whenever you go on LinkedIn and you see these, I think Boston Technologies or something like that, is Boston something, where they had these robots running and turning flips and things like that, and we're all amazed. The military had that for like 10 years. So my thing is, what do they have now? So, and there have been discussions where we're trying to stay away from, so with artificial intelligence, we're trying to stay away from machines learning on their own. But there's 2 websites out there that had these AI algorithms, and they learned on their own. And the researchers had to make adjustments to say, okay, this stuff is too good. So whenever I say it was 20 years away, we're like 5 years away, I think, in my opinion. But we are purposely not putting the pedal to the metal on this. And so to answer your question, I know it's a long-winded answer, but so I talk about business process automation. I talk about robotic process automation. So with business process automation, that automates the processes of invoicing and things like that, right? Invoicing, purchase order approvals. I know that Kaz, you probably have a ton of that at ADP, right? So and within the industry, we'll refer that to workflow, where it kind of automates the processes. Yes, you can say it takes away jobs, but my argument in these presentations is that for those people who did those repetitive tasks, now they're able to move to more value-added activities within that organization. I think I shared the example of drones within the supply chain industry last week. My classes get mixed up, so I apologize. But I was on a panel with the VP of an insurance agency, and he said that those guys would just walk on the roofs of Home Depots and Lowe's to manage the insurability, and then once they adopted drones, then those people who used to risk their lives literally, were trained as drone pilots, and now they're paid more because now they're more marketable. Because drone pilots, you can make some good money flying industrial drones, to be honest. So it's a pretty cool job, right? Just fly drones for a living. But anyway, and again, that's getting huge in the supply chain industry. It's getting huge in warehouses. So instead of going 50 feet up in a cherry picker and counting inventory, like in an Amazon DC, in the UK, they're flying drones around to do those cycle counts and count inventory in warehouses. So you're going. I think we're probably a few years away from that within the US, but the UK is already doing it. So and I think that Celine, you're still in Africa, right? Or you came here?
Yes, I'm still in Africa.
Okay, yeah. So So Africa is one of the countries that are adopting drone technology, especially in the agricultural industry, you know, to assist in things and in supply chain management. So that market, the African market's one place that I'm actually looking for my solutions, because they're more adapted, or they're more accepting in terms of that. But then you can also argue the point where the regulations aren't as strict as they are in the US, right? So yes, you can argue that. So, but the thing is, whenever you talk about those risks, I always say that the US wants that proof of concept before they adopt. And with these blockchain technologies, that's what happened. So Australia, if you're familiar with SAP, the ERP system, SAP integrated blockchain like 3 years ago, if not 4 years ago, within supply chain organizations. SAP, the same exact company, still hasn't done that in the US. You know, so you get, and that's the thing, that's another discussion of, and when we talk about risks, how do the regulations of those respective countries impact risks? What do you think? Anybody? No, Sarah? You got nothing?
Can you repeat the last line that you said?
I said, how do you think the regulations of countries impact the reputational risk or ethical risk in general?
I'm gonna think about that one. That's a big question.
It's a huge question.
I feel like the reputation definitely impacts the ethical obligation, because like if you look at like Asia, like a ton of Asia, you're expected to bribe, and like a ton of companies would rather pay the penalty that the US finds out that they bribed and bribe to get stuff done than to not bribe and be sitting on a deal for years. I mean, I think you see that a ton with massive companies who know they're like within their profit report, they're taking into account how much they would possibly have to pay in penalties for the bribe and which one would have a greater influence on them long term. So I feel like knowing that, it definitely has an impact, but I'm not sure that people necessarily see an ethical obligation in those rules because it's almost necessary.
You made something very interesting that made me just think of a different question. So whenever you say that companies are going to pay penalties for bribes,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that these organizations see the benefit of these bribes and say and understand that, oh, we'll just pay these penalties?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's the same thing as sustainability and emitting, you know, gas into the world. Like they're willing to say like, oh, the penalty for emitting this much gas is going to be 2 billion, but we're making 5 billion off emitting this much gas. So like, obviously we're going to do it. Like that's just capitalism. And I think specifically like US companies going into other countries, they're thinking in a very capitalistic mindset. So they're going to go in there saying what's going to make us the biggest profit. Right. Obviously, unless you're like a Patagonia or some B Corp that's super sustainable. I think most huge corporations are strictly looking at, you know, what's our end goal and how do we get there the fastest with the most profit. Yeah.
And my thing is, it's like, so for my people and my undergrads, I always say it's like the luxury tax the Yankees always pay, right? It's like they know they're going to pay the luxury tax to get these big names. They say we're going to bring in billions. I mean, listen, we'll pay it. I don't care, you know, because they're going to bring in more money. So, all right. So the first exercise is going to take like 2 minutes. So everyone look up Tencent, Tencent, because you brought up China, and Tencent is a behemoth in China. And once you find 10 Cent, somebody let me know what they're all about.
Excuse me, can you repeat that again?
Look up 10 Cent. So TENCENT.
Okay.
And just give me some information on what they're all about, what they're all about, who do they compare to, and if you foresee any type of ethical risks within that company and reputational risks.
Yeah, I lived in Japan for 6 months, and Tencent is literally like everywhere, and they own essentially all your communication.
They own China.
Yeah, in China they own your full communication. They own your payment method. Like, you essentially can't bring cash anymore. Probably not ethical, but I don't know if it's gonna end anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
They're compared to like a joint between like all social media, WhatsApp, and like almost Amazon in one.
Didn't they buy WhatsApp though?
Yeah, I think I think Facebook technically has WhatsApp, but I think they have like partial control in China because the Chinese government I don't know the specifics.
Okay. Did anyone find anything else? There's one key piece of information that I'm looking for that to me was mind-blowing. And Kaz did allude to it. Anybody?
Oh, so are they recently do they own TikTok? I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I just saw that it's the largest games publisher. Is that what you're asking? It owns most of the internet, the video games and stuff like that.
Yeah. So for the thing I was looking for was that, like I said, Kaz talked about it. They have more data than Facebook, Amazon, and all social media combined. So when we talk about ethical risks, reputational risks, you know, what type of risk what type of risk does that pose?
Sorry, can you ask that again, please?
I said, with them having more data from individuals than Facebook, social media, and Amazon combined, what type of risk could that potentially pose?
I mean, that could be a huge risk in terms of, I mean, if they were to get like hacked or something. I mean, we've seen it with Facebook. And like other companies too. I know like Target a couple years ago had a problem, but if they were to get hacked, like that's basically, you know, I'm not really sure how it's set up, but if it has a bunch of users, that's a lot of users' information that's just out there. Especially if it's just, they pretty much own China, it looks like. So I mean, that would be a huge kind of risk in terms of people's all their information just kind of out there for whoever, you know, is able to get in.
Yeah. And I know I talk a lot about it, but the more I think about it, it's very applicable because this is where the industry is going. If you have that much data, that's what that's what creates a differentiator and a superpower when we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning. Right? So now, yes, they can use this for social media, but I've heard, so I know an individual that actually lives in China. She's actually from Michigan. She's been in China for like 2 years, but she says that they're using AI to profile, minorities and people with different sexual orientations and people with different religions, right? So it's like, yes, that's an ethical risk to me, right? Because she says they have AI built in almost every stoplight, every camera in China. She said it's absolutely nuts in China, and they're using this. They're actually using the data from the citizens against the citizens, and nobody can do anything about it. That's a problem. And it's my argument that, without, we're going to talk about supplier codes of conduct, later on. I think that's your midterm, but we have to develop codes of conduct for these technologies. I'm writing about AI codes of conduct in my book, right? I think that you're going to have codes of conduct for each one of these technologies: machine learning, blockchain, 3D printing, digital twins, all these things, because these solutions are rolling out so quickly and everyone's adopting them. So Sarah, does FedEx use any kind of artificial intelligence that you know of?
I think that we use it in our warehouses probably.
Okay.
But beyond that, probably when it comes to some of the data, but I'm honestly not sure.
All right, yeah, because I work with one individual from Sam's Club, and that's his job. He's developing AI algorithms for cycle counts in Sam's Club. So I could see that happening. Could kind of increase efficiencies and things like that. That's what they're using it for. Kaz, does ADP use anything?
For
Does they use AI for anything?
We have a whole new tech hub in New York that they're doing a ton of AI work on. Not sure. It's kind of secretive, so I don't know.
Yeah, all that stuff is secretive.
Excellent. But I was also going to add to the Tencent thing. I feel like what's kind of scary, specifically because it's a Chinese company, they've had a ton of problem in the past with censorship issues. They're putting censorship essentially everywhere, so they control what the majority of the population now sees, separately from the government too. So now there's a double censorship.
Really?
Yeah. And because people can't really go off on the government, there has been a recent backlash on Tencent in China for censorship.
But I know the individual I speak with in so you may know more about this too. So the individual I speak with in China, she goes through a VPN and she can access everything outside of China.
Yeah, you can go through a VPN. I think that's super expatty though, and not as common with locals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's how she communicates. But
yeah. Otherwise, if you're just on WeChat or QQ, they can pretty much show you what you see.
Yeah, and to me that's alarming to me.
Yeah, especially from a private company. It's not from the government. You expect it from the Chinese government, but from a private company, it's interesting that they're taking that upon themselves, clearly because they're getting so much probably government support.
Yeah.
I think that kind of makes them more frightening.
But like I said, I think they've been very quiet after how we've portrayed them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I have my antennas up. With all this going on, and you just gave me some additional information. So now those individuals in China can be getting information about the US from two different sides. And previously, so think about it. Previously, if the government was saying one thing, right, and Tencent was saying something totally different before the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
But now they're in agreement and consensus. They say, "Ooh, the U.S. is absolutely terrible."
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So,
And well, they haven't really also like made a move into the US, so Tencent doesn't really owe the US anything other than the big Fortnite craze, which might be their move into the US. But yeah, I agree with you.
does anyone disagree? Come on, y'all gotta disagree with me on something. Come on. If y'all don't disagree with me on things, it's gonna be a boring semester. Like I said, I want people to disagree with me. So, anyone else have anything else to share on that?
So I just looked up, so I listened to a podcast and I wasn't sure if it was Tencent or not. I think it's a company called ByteDance.
BYTE?
Let's see. Yeah, BYTE Dance. And so this was, I think, a couple months ago, but Trump had said that he was going to ban TikTok in the United States because of how it was owned and all the data was, super intense, like how much data they have on U.S. citizens and everyone. And I know that I think Microsoft was the one who ended up going in on the bid to buy TikTok. So it could
Oracle was trying to buy TikTok. I remember that.
Yeah,
I don't know where it left off.
Yeah, I don't remember who won, if it was Microsoft or Oracle, but all the data now, will fall under their umbrella. But I know that was because he was worried about, doing business in China and different repercussions of, China having so much information.
How does this reputational risk with China impact supply chains? This has been a hot topic from November until during the race until November, I would say. How do you think it's going to impact supply chain management?
I think it might make it a lot more difficult in terms of supply chain with that reputation, just because of obviously we do like a lot of business with China. I think they're, whether it's manufacturing or selling or sending items back and forth. If this becomes a bigger issue than it is now, then it could be definitely something that businesses take a look at, whether it's on their side or our side, and maybe try to find something else just within the supply chain management.
Excellent. I appreciate that. So, any other thoughts from anyone? I don't want to leave anybody out. I was going to call you anyway. Keep going.
Me?
Yes, I was going to call you next. So keep
I wanted to have the class that your class talk, more than I do, because I have my own discussion with other team members on my class. So I wanted to have everyone talk first, but I just wanted to add that the reputation risk would create. I agree with Matt. That it creates more problems in the supply chain field, because when I was thinking about blockchain, I don't know much about it, but I became fan of Walmart or Unilever because I read a news that they started to use the blockchain to show us the food trust or the product trust for us to have a visibility and have a visibility to trace the journey of the products or food that we're purchasing to bring it to our home. So if you think about the reputation risk from China or other countries between US, what if the products that I see are coming from China that that has a really bad reputation, right? So those blockchain with the visibility would also be harmed from having to have much business going on with the countries that we have a bad reputation relationship with.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and going to that point, so Walmart has developed a solution. So in my so I talk a lot about blockchain in my TEDx talk. So if you go to TED.com, you can type my name in, you'll see those talks. But So one of the primary use cases I talk about is Walmart was able to recall a batch of mangoes in 2.2 seconds, which would normally take them 6.5 days, right? Now, there's another use case I didn't discuss where they were able to recall a batch of pork that was contaminated in a matter of seconds. I know Walmart in, I forgot what country it is, but they work with the local farmers where they're able to put the life of a chicken on the blockchain using a QR code. So you can be in these stores. I don't know exactly what country it is. I should have looked it up, but I think it's Walmart. But you can scan your QR code and you can get that born on date, like Budweiser used to have a born on date. I don't know if they still have it or not, but you can get a born on date of the chicken before you buy it in the grocery store. And it'll track the life of that chicken and how much it weighed at certain times. And then it'll tell you when it got slaughtered, when it got sent to the grocery store. So, you know, if you go to a grocery store and you say, okay, how long has this meat really been here? Right? Is this really die, or is it really fresh? I can scan the QR code and I can see exactly whenever that meat hit that shelf. You know, so that, and again, that's the power of the blockchain. That falls into the ethical considerations in the supply chain management, right? Because there's been so many stories about how companies will throw dyes in like salmon and beef and things like that to make it look fresher. Now if we add on a blockchain, everything's transparent, right? So and people ask me all the time, yeah, that sounds amazing. Why don't we do it? Because companies have so much to hide. That's why. The blockchains are already there. The blockchains are already in place. They just don't want people to see what's really going on. Right?
I have a question. So I was just thinking about artificial intelligence, how it expands more into like tracking of packages and like not just, you know, the information of the package, but also, so like right now with healthcare shipments, we're tracking the temperature of what's inside so they don't, so we know if we need to take action. And I don't know if blockchain has ever been like how the relationship is with tracking packages, or if, because isn't that kind of the similar idea that you're, you know,
it's kind of the same exact, it's the same exact concept. So just as I copy and paste that tracking number from FedEx, it's the same exact thing. But the thing is, you don't get the source. So you don't say it again.
I was gonna say, then that kind of defeats, you know, different purpose, but yeah.
So the beauty of blockchain is you'll get it from what they refer to as farm to fork, if you will, right? So you'll get it from lab to vial, if you will, you know, lab to arm. So you could say at the time that particular vaccine was manufactured, you know, in the lab, what distribution center it went to, right? Whether FedEx or UPS distributed it, because, you know, they split out the countries, you know better than I do, right? And then who took over that last mile delivery or whatever, you know, because whenever something like, so, and that's more meaningful, because I'm surprised we haven't heard anything about counterfeit vaccines coming out yet. Because whenever those tests came out, have you heard anything?
I know that they talk about security, and they have surveillance vehicles monitoring leaving from like the different hubs, because there's a lot of like protests and people trying to steal packages, so that for all different kinds of reasons. But I'm sure
that's where the blockchain would be very valuable. Because if there was a package that was missing, they would say, okay, what lot number was missing? They put that lot number in the blockchain, boom. It was last tracked here, for example, right? So that's why that you can't find it. You can't get that with you can't get that with UPS. UPS doesn't track down to the lot number. You know, you may have UPS's back end may have it, But me as a consumer, I don't have that information. And that's why blockchain is very powerful, because you can have permission blockchains where you have to have a sign in, right? Or you can have permissionless blockchains, just like me scanning the code for FedEx.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's the difference. Yes, I'm hung up on technology, but it needs to be discussed, because the ethics fall into technology, and that's probably one of the main parts where it falls into, that we have to all consider as consumers. You know, and you all as leaders have to think about that whenever you're implementing processes within your organization, right? You know, I know that there's a whole class. How many people's taking that technology class? Or, I forgot exactly what it's called. Anyone taking that? Okay. So I think that I talk a lot about it. Even people that's not in technology, you know, leaders of organizations are asking about this daily. So I actually developed the first accredited sustainable supply chain certification for the International Supply Chain Education Alliance. I actually have a presentation tomorrow from 8 to 10, and we're talking about, you know, emerging tools. And emerging tools, all I'm talking about is tech. You know, I'm talking about big data. I'm talking about machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, digital twins, because that's the tools that's going to lead to a sustainable world. You know, and those tools are going to be the tools that make or break an organization. Because if you don't adopt these tools, your competitors are going to adopt these artificial intelligence tools, because they're going to it's going to increase decision making. It's going to increase efficiency within organizations. It's going to increase forecasting within organizations. So there's a new tool out that integrates artificial intelligence called demand sensing, where it's pulling that structured and unstructured data from social media and things like that. You know, so I can only imagine what China's doing with the Tencent. Tencent's probably creating their own forecasting application for their manufacturers in China. And that thing is gonna be amazing, just because of the data they have. Right. So I mean, I think that yes, I talk a lot about it. I'm gonna keep talking about it, because it's a differentiator. And I think that we need to kind of brainstorm on how do ethics fall into, you know, these emerging technologies, because I always mention the fact that these technologies are coming out before we can discuss regulating these technologies, before we can discuss, you know, what the codes of conduct are going to be, before we can discuss what's the GDPR requirements for these technologies. You know, and that's something that's very important, because these technologies, we're going to lose control. We're going to lose control, and it's going to be coming soon if we don't do anything about it. Right. So anything else? Any other thoughts?
I was thinking about the healthcare industry and how
good point. I didn't mention
a lot of the hospitals and different customers that we work with are really behind on technology, just because their primary focus is not necessarily on updating their systems, but it's on, you know, saving lives in their day-to-day. But they're the ones that need a lot of these like technologies the most, and like tracking when, you know, a heart is on the way and being delivered. But a lot of them are not willing to update their technology because they don't trust that it's going to take or keep customer information private. And a lot of the people don't want to share because of HIPAA restrictions. I don't know. I was just thinking about that and how the future of data will, you know, feed into the healthcare industry, because I feel like there's a lot of obstacles to get over in order for that to happen.
Yeah, and I didn't really think about the HIPAA. Like, how do these new technologies impact the current HIPAA laws? Do they change? Right? If they change, when is it going to take the government to say, uh-oh, we got to change this? Once they identify they have to change it, how long is it going to take for them to change it? You see? And that's an argument one of my other students made last semester, where he said, yeah, the government can regulate, but it's going to take them 2 years to establish policies, and then once those 2 years pass, this technology is evolving into something else. The law they're trying to put into place is now obsolete. That's one thing that I talk about whenever I did those TED events in 2019. What I was talking about in blockchain in 2019 some of those things are already obsolete in 2021. Because that's how quickly this stuff is changing. And I think that ethics is going to be a big, you're actually going to see a number of professions just coming out on ethics. I was at a conference and they were saying, unfortunately, because of drones and things like that and all the risk, and there's no laws in place, there are lawyers that are specializing in drones, in drone suits. And they're specializing in drone suits. They're specializing in autonomous vehicle suits. For example, drone falls out of the sky, lands on somebody, kills them. Who's liable? Manufacturer? The person who built the drone, or the drone operator? Who's liable? Who do you think?
The operator?
The person who owns the drone is always liable.
Really?
Right? Well, like if you're driving a truck, like for FedEx, and you hit someone, the company is going to end up having to take on the lawsuit now.
Yeah, but
if it's during work hours, or like ethically liable.
And I think they need to investigate to see what was the issue. Maybe that was like a factory issue or a default, or
that's what I'm saying. If it's a defect and the operator's operating, this thing just stops working.
Yeah.
But how can you prove that? Right? See, that's the things we're talking about. So to make it more complicated, autonomous vehicles, who's liable? Tesla's rolling out autonomous vehicles now. This autonomous vehicle crashes. Who's liable? Is it Tesla? Is it the operator, or is it the person who developed that algorithm in the car?
I guess it depends what's in the contract when you buy the car.
Yeah, I don't answer that question. I'm asking y'all because I don't know.
I think the person takes on that responsibility themselves, and that falls on them.
Okay. Yeah. Any other thoughts? No. Yeah.
I always think about it when I always think about the responsibility in the healthcare sector too. When you think about LASIK surgery.
So yeah, who's liable? So what's the law on LASIK surgery? What's the law on that one?
The law?
Yeah, who's liable in LASIK?
I don't know.
Okay.
No, the thing I always think, do you guys know? I always think about, if I'm gonna get the LASIK in 2020 and it didn't happen. In 2021, I'm gonna get a LASIK surgery, and I don't know if it's gonna happen. I still didn't really look into the law, but really, if you think about it, if it's gonna be the doctor who does the surgery, who will be responsible for my eyes if it goes bad, or if there's a health law that will prevent me from having to do with the doctor itself if it turns bad.
Yeah.
Always think about that.
Yes, I've also been thinking about doing the LASIK, and one of the, like, you sign a contract to the doctor for, like, if anything goes bad, you're liable for that. Yeah.
Okay.
I got LASIK eye surgery and I highly recommend it.
Thank you. It could be really different for where you get it too. If I get it in Korea, it could be 100% covered, from the doctor, but I don't know here at all. So.
I've been thinking about it myself for a number of years. My eyes keep getting this. So they told me when I turned 27 that my it would level out, but it keeps getting worse. So they said to keep telling me to wait. So we'll see. What do you got to say, Matt?
I was gonna say I got LASIK too. And part of the I also highly recommend it. It was a lot quicker than I thought it was gonna be. I was in there for like probably 5 minutes. And
Seriously?
yeah. It's
Wow.
the technology has come such a long way. They just put you under like this laser thing and just laser your eyes.
You don't feel it?
Yeah, what'd you say?
You don't feel it? Do you feel it? Like, is it like
No, they like numb your eyes up so you like don't feel it.
But you're awake the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
You are?
You have to be, because you have to keep your eyes open.
But it's kind of like when you go to the eye doctor and you like look down the sights. You just have to focus on this green light the entire time.
Oh, like the puffer test? I can't stand that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of similar to that. But no, it was great. But when I did it, I'm not sure, I have to relook at the sheet I signed, but it wasn't like they weren't liable. They offered like coverage if anything were to go wrong. But I'm pretty sure that they weren't at fault, is what, if I remember correctly, if anything went wrong.
Or if you have like side effects, I think you have to like acknowledge that they might not be fixable. Like I have severe dry eyes now, but I'm okay with it because I can see 20/20.
Right? It's like I live with dry eyes.
Straight off.
But
Matt,
it's a trade-off.
you have any side effects like dry eyes and stuff?
No, I got it done in early November, I think, and I've been pretty lucky not to have anything. But they basically put you through like an extensive kind of test. They scan both your eyeballs and like look at them to make sure you're qualified and everything. Because obviously, if you're not and they still do it, then they could really screw your eyes up. But yeah, I mean, I've been like 3 or 4 months and I've been pretty good, no side effects. So
okay, yeah, I've been thinking about doing it for a long time. How much is it?
I think it was like 2,500, 2,600. It was a lot
An eye
cheaper
or
than I
total?
thought it was going to be.
That's total or an eye?
Total.
Okay.
That was like walk out the door price.
What was your Sarah? You don't have to tell me. I'm just saying.
Honestly, I don't remember. I think my dad's insurance at the time covered part of it. So I couldn't tell you. But I think it was per eye. Because some people get it in like one eye, I think.
Interesting.
No, that sounds wrong. Don't listen to me.
No, now that I think about it, it might have been per eye. Hold on, I have an email.
You don't have to worry about it. I just wanted, because I know when I was looking at it a long time ago, it was like 10 grand. That's why I didn't even buy it.
Yeah, it wasn't that much.
This is like 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a break at 7. We're almost done, but we might shut it down at 7. But I want you to get your money's worth. But I don't want to keep you here for no reason. So
I have a quick question.
Yep.
And maybe you covered this a little bit last time, but when we have the class on Tuesdays, is there like the same structure each time? Like we're going to go over what we learned in the homework and then kind of feed into the lessons for the next time?
Yes. Why you ask?
Oh, just I like structure and I like to know similar each time.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked that question is that I'm different from, I would say, regardless of my institution I teach at, I'm different than other people where I don't use PowerPoints. I think Professor Dunn uses PowerPoints. I hate PowerPoints. I hated PowerPoints when I was in my undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral program. I hated them with a passion. So that's why I always say that I just have discussions. And whenever we have discussions on the content, I think that undergraduate students, graduate students can relate it to their organizations. And my feedback, even after kids got their grades, they said that they liked that the best. So now if you want structure, if you want PowerPoints, I'll give you PowerPoints. I might be grumpy because I don't like going off of PowerPoints, but if you want PowerPoints, I'll give you PowerPoints. So I mean, what type? What and I mean, this is your class. I mean, what type of approach do you like? Because you're gonna be stuck with me for a long time.
I think I'm gonna like your style. I haven't been in school in a couple of years, so it's hard to really remember. But I think free flowing discussion is a good way to go about it rather than kind of a monotonous presentation that you're following.
Right. I mean, whether we do a presentation or not, I'm still going to be going over the same stuff. But it's just going to be a conversation because I like for you all to kind of think about your organizations and then throw out questions, just like you did and just like, Chiwan did and Kaz did. And now you can relate to it. Now you can actually apply it to your organizations. So that's why I take that approach. Does anyone want PowerPoints? Machine, you look like you want PowerPoints. You said, I like PowerPoints.
No, not at all.
Okay, you're like, I don't want to be that person.
No, I was like,
no. All right. And another thing is, I mean, I think that bringing in a short lecture, I try to bring that in. I try to bring in Sherry, and again, reach out to Sherry. She'll connect with you if you have more questions to her. She's now partner at IBM, so, and she'll talk to you. Just say that you're in Justin's class at Georgetown. She'll be like, oh, what time you want to talk? So yeah, so me and her and I are very close. And if you have any questions on that with her based on anything she talked about, as I said before, go to Supply Chain Revolution. That's her podcast. She has some amazing people in there. So enough of that. So whenever, in terms of the assignments this week, you're going to Chaewon. I think this is the same. I think it's the same.
The same thing.
Same assignment. Okay, so yeah, go through this assignment with the Amazon and Boeing. Also, as we continue on,
is this due on Thursday?
It says Thursday, but I'm flexible. Initial post on Thursday. Okay. Well, no, yeah. I'm flexible. All right. Yeah, so if you post on Friday, that's good, but just don't do it to Saturday, because then everybody has to go in and do 2 posts on Sunday and things like that. And another thing I say is, just check in. It's going to take 5 minutes to see what new posts are within that discussion, because my thing is discussions are not a check the box thing. You're going to learn from different industries, and I would say that from my experience, I mean, that's what I did. I always tried to say that, okay, I have no clue about healthcare, and learning from my peers at Penn State, my graduate program, that's how I understood the need for, Lean Six Sigma within the healthcare industry. So I actually developed kind of a client base, from what my peers were talking about in my graduate program. Because I implemented Six Sigma for 15 years in manufacturing, and the same exact stuff that I did in manufacturing was transferable to the healthcare industry. And it was through these discussion posts that people were talking about where I seen that. So my whole point is that, you know, just try to find some connections and try to find, you know, what types of approaches are transferable, you know, to your industry from others. You know, so Matt, you know, he's in higher education. It's like, okay, what does higher education have to do with supply chain? Everything. You know, Penn State's massive. You know how big, how many millions of dollars in purchase orders they probably cut every year? Tons. You know what type of supply chain coordination they have to have for a campus as large as Penn State? A very pretty tight knit program. You know, and I don't think so. Matt, is purchasing centralized to UP for all campuses, or each campus has their own purchasing department? Do you know?
I'm not super sure. I work on the athletics side, so I know that they kind of have their own sort of purchasing type of thing. But as for like, you know, other aspects of it, I'm not entirely sure how that works.
Okay, but do you know if a department in athletics has to approve like purchase orders from other campuses, from Commonwealth campuses?
From like the branch campuses?
Yeah.
I think it's actually, I think maybe like for bigger ones they do.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the branch campuses actually kind of operate as their own type of, you know, office. So if the Altoona campus wants like new uniforms or something, I think that's kind of their call. It doesn't really go through our office.
Okay, interesting. Okay. So I mean, and so I think like I said, the biggest thing is to go through those discussions, try to see what you haven't heard of before, for example, right? And see what's transferable to your organization. For example, I'm actually, as I said last week, you know, I'm actually doing some sustainability work for a fashion institute in the UK. And I'm working with a number of fashion designers from a supply chain perspective. I'm working with a lot of fashion designers from an innovation and technology perspective. And within the fashion industry, they're doing, because of the pandemic, they're doing a lot of 3D fashion shows. And Chiwan, you're in fashion, right?
No.
Okay. You were shaking your head, shaking your head like, yeah. All right, sorry about that. But because they're implementing a lot of 3D within the fashion industry, that's transferable to me. So they're doing 3D fashion. So if you're interested in that, let me see here. This thing blew me away. This will be the last thing I'll share. I think her name is FIFA 3D. Might be spelling it wrong. See, I actually looked at it. So this is something that's being implemented within the fashion industry, right? So my mindset is, okay, this is absolutely nuts. How is this transferable to the supply chain industry? But this is transferable to the supply chain industry because it's going to reduce waste. Because now I can create this 3D garment during the R&D stage, and I can see where it lays. So now I'm not creating like prototypes and wasting fabric, and I can use this 3D modeling to reduce waste in my supply chain, right? So that's how you have to think about this stuff. This is nuts, right? Anyway. So that's just what I want you all to think about. And whenever you're speaking with people from different industries, think about how it's transferable within your industry. Okay. So any questions? I mean, I don't really have anything else to talk about. What topics do you want? Like I said, I'm not going to waste your time, but I don't want you to feel that, oh, well, we just stayed on here for, an hour and a half. Where's the rest of the time? So what is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of what you learned last week, in terms of what you learned this, in terms of what we talked about this week on risk? Yes, no?
I had one quick question. It was going back to when you were talking about the QR code with like the chicken and stuff in Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
So I someone else said it, but I'm not too familiar with blockchain either. But how, I get not like easy, but how would like people be able to manipulate that QR code so they could see, if you scanned it, you would see a chicken that was born whatever the normal amount of time is, but in reality that's just a completely different product on the shelf? Or is blockchain something that's like pretty sturdy in terms of that?
So blockchain, so if you ask any tech person, I would say, well, tech people, I will say, because people are biased. I would say the consensus is, if you were to ask them, what's the most secure technology out now? I would say the consensus is going to be blockchain. Because blockchain, the larger the blockchain network becomes, the more secure it becomes. And so the beauty of blockchain is that it's decentralized. It's decentralized, it's consensus based. So the way I explain it, and this is perfect because this is like a perfect example. So I don't know how your layout is on your screen, but I have Sarah on this side, and then I have Celine on this side. I have Chiwan below me. I have Kaz below me, right? So if I create a blockchain transaction, it's consensus based. So Celine says, "Yep, that's good." Sarah says, "Yep, that's good." Chiwan says, "Yep, that's good." Kaz says, "Yes, that's good." You say, "Yes, that's good." It's consensus based, so it's decentralized, right? So if someone tries to, this is crazy, but if someone tries to, I don't know who's emailing me right now, but it's going nuts. If someone tries to change that transaction in any given way, Sarah's going to see it, Celine's going to see it, you're going to see it, Chaewon's going to see it, Kaz is going to see it. And if that someone tries to change it, that person has to hack into every single one of your nodes to change it before you see it, right? And there's been some attempts called a brute force attack, where I brute force attack Sarah's. But if I brute force attack Sarah's, then you're going to see it, and you're going to say, "Hey, Celine, you see this? Hey, Kaz, you see this?" And now we say, "Okay, there's a problem. There's trouble in the city," right? And also, so whenever that block, that transaction is written to the block, I say, it creates that QR code. So if I scan that QR code and I say, okay, something doesn't look right here, then I go into my permissionless blockchain. I bring up that permissionless blockchain transaction. I shoot that exact same code. If they don't match, that's a problem, right? So it's kind of like if someone like pluck this QR code off from this chicken and put it on this chicken, then that's where it could be a problem, right? So that's one of the risks with putting those blockchain QR codes on like hang tags and things like that. If it's like just a tag that I can just pull off, like a price tag on clothing, there's risk to that, right? Because I can just simply take it off and put it on something else, But if you kind of have like I said, a born on date, that's kind of scanned into that, kind of scanned into the chicken, then there's no taking it off. Because if you kind of have like a RFID code kind of put on or implanted into the chicken, I'm not sure how that use case is. You can look it up, but just put in. I don't know why I just say. Let me see here. I think I can simply just put chicken on blockchain and it'll come up. Let me see here. Chickens on blockchain. There's one. Yeah, just go on YouTube and type in chickens on blockchain. think this is the one I watched. I think that's the one I watched. So there's multiple. I think, like I said, I think Walmart did something like this. Probably one of the richest guys in the world. It's like 26. He created Ethereum. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that did. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other scenarios you want to talk about? Like I said, I'm not going to keep you here just for the sake of keeping you here. All right.
I wanted to, can I? I wanted to hear your opinion at the team and the professor on one of the projects that I worked on back at LG Electronics.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm in the just because you mentioned fashion industry, I'm in server, a hyperscale server company where we build a data center storage for our customers. So I learned a little bit of blockchain of our customers directly managing our raw materials from a procurement perspective into going into servers and racks and even delivering to the data centers as a finished good level. So I'm doing that right now. That's just to let you know. But then when I was at LG Electronics, I wanted to hear your opinion on the ethics or corporate CSR perspective of your opinion, because at LG Electronics they built like a really awesome showroom kitchen, LG Electronics kitchen and TV showroom in Napa Valley, and I don't know how much it was exactly, but it was a lot of money that the headquarter had to spend for a LG kitchen showroom. So it had like 5 different rooms in a big house, really great looking house. And the whole purpose of it was to invite like a big box stores, Best Buy or Home Depot, or to the smaller stores where you go for your furniture shopping or the TV shopping right in your area.
Mm.
So the whole point was to invite the customers into the LG kitchen showroom in Napa Valley and actually give them an explanation of the LG kitchens and LG products in front of the customers by cooking them, fine dining foods and give them like Napa Valley wines, at right there. So I just wanted to now learning the corporate ethics for the first time and thinking about the projects that I worked on and inviting the customer without even thinking of how they would feel about this invitation that they received from me, from our team for marketing purpose or for any of the product training purpose. They had to fly over to Napa Valley. They had to eat with us for like 5 meals, throughout like 2 days, 3 days of trip. And they were treated with like the nicest wine and nicest service that we provided at the kitchen. So now I think about it, I think if I was working at Best Buy or Home Depot, if our corporate social responsibility team would definitely prevent you from going to the event such in Napa Valley, then how did everyone make it? I'm just curious like now thinking about going back to our last assignment. If you guys were invited to such event, would you guys go, or if every companies have a different CSR or corporate ethics like policy, right? If every company has a different policy, how would you meet in the middle to do actually the business together? Just wanted to bring one example here kind of for discussion.
What do y'all think?
I think because it's business related and it's not like they're just taking them to Disney World for fun. And this is the business that they're in and entertaining and with TVs, and they actually get to go and experience what they're going to be purchasing. I'm sure there's still guidelines around it, but I feel like it's a little more acceptable.
Right. Yeah. It's not like entertainment. Yeah. It's more marketing. Right. Now so to answer your question, it comes down to what's the policy of the organization.
In
That's what
customers
that's the first step. What's the organization's policy? You know, so Walmart's policy, I think Walmart goes as far as Walmart can't give a bottled water to a vendor. They go that far. So it comes down to what's the organization's policy. What's anyone else's thoughts? Rashid, what do you think? You've been very quiet today.
Well, I believe that, I'm saying it from my experience, working in a market that, culturally, and I know I say it because, I know Korean's culture is very close to, our culture. Well, in like inviting customers and spending money, on like dining, it's very common. So this is something that we do it like in our everyday business. Is completely acceptable, from all our respect. So I believe that can, play a role, like a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yeah, and in the business that I used to be, like in cosmetic business, for example, we were, for example, exclusive agent of one manufacturer, and we used to invite our customers to fancy trips to Europe to go visit the facilities, and we got them very, luxury hotels and everything. And now knowing about ethics, so like some part of that, it's, very weird, but that was something very common, and that was something that our customers expected us to do. Yeah. So
Right.
it's culture.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really haven't seen within like a large institutional policy. It's like, okay, is this the policy across the board, or is this the policy in the US? Are there any differences in China? Are there any differences in Mexico? Due to the cultures. If I don't give the owner, the leader of the organization a gift in China, I'm not getting the business. It's that simple. So how does that play into our organization's policy? I haven't seen anything like that. So that would be one thing I'll ask you all to do. Are there organizations out there that have policies per region? Because that's one thing I haven't really looked for or seen.
I mean, I feel like if it's a multinational company, you're probably, I don't know about a US employee reading up on the per se like France policy, but if you were an employee of the same organization in France, I'm sure you're signing different documents and going through different trainings. Right. But I don't think cross-border, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, I'm saying if I'm a US employee, and I'm trying to get the business of an individual in China. Now I see what you're saying, that okay, if we're in China, we're trying to win business in China, well, we're gonna have a Chinese office. That's not always the case.
Yeah.
So how are there policies out there? Culture specific policies or country specific policies.
Well, let me tell you something. I've seen it in European companies a lot. Well, especially the multicultural ones that they have like, facilities or agents in other regions. Well, I've seen lots of like European companies do that. So they know the culture of the other country that they are they have business with, and they try to, like not bending the rules, but try to, at least like do it somehow to respect that. Well, I think US based companies are more strict on that. Maybe because of the regulations and like more fines and everything, but I've seen it a lot in European countries. Like especially the ones that they have like different branches in different like continents.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna do some more research on that one myself. Any other? That was an excellent question. You see what you get whenever you ask questions, because you have so many people different experiences here. You know. So, what other questions do you have? Anything? All right. So if you don't have any more questions, we're gonna wrap it up. I'll hang out here if anyone has anything else offline that wants to discuss offline, and you know, if you have any questions in regards to the assignments, just reach out to me. Let me know. I think my phone number is up there. Just send me a text, and you know, I'll respond to the text, or we'll hop on a phone call if we need to. All right.
So I had a quick question. For the shorter assignments where it's not like a long paper, are we supposed to do title pages and okay.
You're wasting my time with that one.
Okay, so
Give me the meat. Give me the meat.
Okay, so just have like our name and whatever.
Just have your name. You have your name, and we're good.
Okay.
Thanks. All right.
Yeah, sorry, one question about the assignment, because by next week we should submit the company name that we should work on for midterm project.
Yes.
So what should we do for that? So by which criteria should I select a company?
So for the midterm, we initially wanted people to kind of, if you didn't have a code of conduct, you know, we want you to use your company. If you get approval to do that, that way you can build something that you can bring to your organization, you know, or, you know, if you already have one, then, you know, you can choose another company. Or if you have a current standard code of conduct and your manager says, well, we haven't updated this in 5 years, take another look at this, then let me know that, and then we can build on that. So either choose your company or choose another a company that you've researched that does not have a code of conduct.
So yeah, so right now as I work in a school, so it's totally, you know, different. I'm not gonna go with the school code of conduct. I'm a teacher right now, so I'm gonna pick a company. So you mean that?
Wait a minute, but your school has suppliers though. Or you just don't want to do that?
not interested.
Okay, continue.
But you mean that in case that we didn't want to go with our company, should we go select the one that doesn't have code of conduct?
Does not have a standard code of conduct.
Or has one, but it's not, you know, well organized, maybe?
I want one that does not have a standard code of conduct. If you work for an organization that needs work, then I would say yes, you can use an existing standard or supplier code of conduct. I don't know why I said standard. Supplier code of conduct. But in most cases, find one that does not have one, where you have to start from scratch.
Okay.
All right.
So also after I looked at
Answer your question. Sorry.
No, you're
Answer your question, Nazia?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
After I looked up ADPs, they do have an asterisk about international, about bribes in the bribe section. It says you must conform to laws and customs as recognized by written local law or published judicial decision of the country in which the expenditures are incurred, as well as the policies, rules, or conducts of a conduct recipient. So that's kind of super broad and not.
Right.
Seems like you might be able to accept bribes.
Pretty much. And
Yeah.
and the thing
like
is,
laws and customs, which customary.
Since that thing is published,
Mhm.
a lawyer reviewed that and approved that.
Yeah, exactly.
So they made it that way for a reason.
Right, because they know for sure.
They
We do
made it
have
that way
active
for a
offices
reason.
in China, yeah.
You know.
Mhm.
So given that, is that ethical? Do y'all think that's ethical?
I think they're not trying to make it ethical or unethical. That's why it's so broad.
Hey,
which is fair.
right? I mean, that's that's the things you have to think about. That's the things you have to discuss as leaders. You know, so perfect example. I work with one organization in Miami, downtown Miami. I pull in, and Maseratis, Rolls Royce. It was nuts. But this company was a startup, and they grew to a $10 million company in like 5 months. What happened was the co-founder used to work for a pharmaceutical distribution company. So they had the connections with rare pharmaceuticals that nobody can get. They could get it. So it was a great market, pretty much. They pretty much operated in a great market. And right after Michael Jackson died, propofol went. You couldn't find it, but the co-founder could find it. And I think it was like $100 or something a vial. They could find it. They sold it to hospitals for like $5,000 a vial. So my thing is, how much were patients paying for it? Right. So I went to my manager and said, I can't consciously work with these people because these people are absolutely terrible. And they would get students would drop out of college. They would come in, they would sell to hospitals, make a profit of like 15 grand in like a month. 15 grand bonus in a month. Would be gone for like 5 weeks, blow all the money,